Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Debra Eckerling, author of your Goal Guide and creator of the Deb Method for Goal Setting Simplified. You can't reach your goals on your own, you need your people. So every week I bring in some of my people to dive into the topic. And today we are talking about creating courses. And I'm excited. I wanted to cover this for a while, and here we are. And we have course creator extraordinaire, Nancy Giere. Thank you for the intro, Anastasia. And we have Jason Van Orden, who I met because of his GEM networking meetups. So thank you, Robbie Samuels, for that introduction. And well, this is the thing. You need your people. So we get to be each other's people. And whether you're watching live or the replay, or you may even be listening to us as an episode of the Deb Show podcast on the Marketing Podcast Network, we are glad you're here and feeling, we hope, inspired to take action on those course creation goals. So before we dive in, why don't I let you all introduce yourselves? I was going to say better, but all I basically said was you're awesome. So yes, please share who you are, why you're here, and why you are so excited to talk about this topic. So Nancy?
All right. Well, my name is Nancy Giere, and I've been working in the course creation business for my professional career. I work with businesses of all sizes, from solopreneurs to Fortune 100 companies and everybody in between. And it's all about helping you either monetize your expertise and or get the best work you can out of your team.
And they're all, and so teamwork was last week's topic. So I feel like this is a nice little dovetail into this conversation. So awesome. I am really glad you're here. Jason, I'm glad you're here too. And let me fix the banner. That's not you. Now, there you go. Jason, welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much, Deb. So it's great to be here. My name's Jason Van Orden. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm a business strategist that works specifically with coaches who are at that point that they want to go from a one-to-one based business model to a one-to-many business model because they want to help more people. They want to serve more people, and they'd love to increase their income. But when you're working one-to-one, at some point, it maxes out. There's only so much of your time and energy that you can sell. So have them organize their unique approach to delivering results into a signature process, wrap that up into an evergreen premium group course, and then upgrade their marketing and sales systems to be able to keep that course filled on a regular basis, because selling one-to-one versus selling one-mini is a different thing. And so there's some adjustments to make there. I'm sure we can talk about some of that today. But that's what I do. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I was right when I said it was a really good mix on the different sides of this conversation. And you kind of both answer this. I know you did, Jason, but I'm going to ask it point blank. Why create courses?
Yeah. So there are a lot of different reasons why you might want to create a course as an expert. And certainly one of them is that you can take your intellectual property and take it farther. And one of the things that actually excites me most about creating a course is similar to like when you write a book or something. It forces you to really formalize what it is that you do and how you do it and who you do it for. Like you have to sit down and put some deep thought. And not to say that you're not doing great work when you're just working intuitively one-on-one with people, but we all know that to grow a business, you got to get your operations in order so that not everything is on your plate. And we'll do that with so many different things in our business. And then sometimes expert-based businesses don't think about, well, I need to do that with my intellectual property as well. I need to organize it in a meaningful way. So that's why I love working with coaches and consultants to help them do that. Is it's not just about creating the program, but it's about formalizing their unique genius in a way that allows them to communicate it, deliver it in a more, powerful, efficient, broader way to reach more people. So they can have a bigger impact in the world, specifically with those people that they are uniquely positioned and meant to serve.
I love that. And I kind of feel like I should wait for this question, but I'm not going to. So Nancy, you can also answer it as a part two, but why a course as opposed to a book or speaking or something else? And I have had this conversation with a friend who was organizing a new course concept. And my answer was write a book proposal to help get it organized. So I think that's exactly what she did is she wrote it as a book proposal and then was able to use the structure of the course. So why a course versus a book?
Well, I think most people should have both, because there are two ways for you to get your, I like to say, I use the term bundle your brilliance. So, and you can bundle your brilliance in a lot of different ways. And some people want to read a book. Some people want to take a course. So you can reach then two different markets. And if you think about it just too, from in terms of what you're going to earn over time, the book, you put the book out, it's $19.95, let's say. And then, special day on Kindle, it's a penny or whatever the minimum amount is you can do, right? Well, of course, you can start out at a higher price point. So you don't need to sell as many courses as you do books. And I think it's not to necessarily look at things from the perspective of a course, but think of it as as part of your business, you've got programs. And a course is one of the things could fall under a program. Similar to what Jason was saying before, if you're working as a coach, if you can take the basic information that you say over and over and over and over again, and you extract that and you put it into an online course format, then when you work with people, you can work with them at a deeper level. You also have the opportunity to serve more people. So you can go from the do-it-yourself crowd to the high ticket VIP client where working one-on-one makes sense. So the more ways we can engage with our community, the more people we can serve, and it's just a greater opportunity overall.
Jason, your thought?
On the book versus course thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely with Nancy that it's a good idea to have both of them. Now, I guess, chicken or egg, it could go in a number of ways with that. I mean, I often, one thing I will say to add this to the conversation is that if you are writing a book and you think at some point you would like to turn that into a course, that's good to know when you're actually putting the book together, because often I'll have authors come to me and they've got the book and it's a great book. Now they want to turn it into a course, but there's so many things that could have been done inside of the book to really have it make that connection into having the right people raise their hand, because you don't necessarily know who's bought a book and read it, right? Unless you build into your book different ways to encourage them to come to your website, to sign up for an email list, to get additional materials outside of the book, so that then you can continue that relationship with the book reader. And at the point that they might be ready for more, which might be immediately after reading the book, maybe they're excited to get going and implement, maybe it's down the road and they remember, your book and now they'd like to go deeper with it, that you've already got them in your orbit, so to speak. And that requires some planning at the time of writing the book in order to do that. And whether you're making a course or not, I think that's a good idea to try to, bridge that gap between book and like customer journey based, relationship with the people in your crowd. So there's something I would add to that.
Yes, definitely. It all needs to fit into your business model and how you want to engage with your clients. I will say, if someone's already if somebody comes to me and they've written a book, it's an easier path forward when they come to me and they go, hey, I'd like to make a course and this is my expertise, because they've already got some kind of an organizing scheme. And then you can step back and you can say, do you want the book and the course to work together? Are these going to be complementary pieces, or do you want to replicate it? I had one person, she did, it was all about mental health for pilots. So the book talked about the problem. It talked about the challenges, it raised awareness, but then the course got into, okay, if you're a pilot, what can you do to take better care of yourself so that you can keep on flying?
That's such a cool topic. Mental health for pilots. I mean,
yeah.
See, this is
who knew?
This is why we need to help people get their ideas out there bigger.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
It's amazing the different types of content that you can come across. And that's, I think, the fun of what we do, is that, we're learning something new all the time as well.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I love what I do, is I love the novelty of discovering the topics of each of the individuals and their perspective on those topics as well, for sure.
I love the windy road we're going on. Let's keep that journey. And I did put in the chat, one of the things I did when I released your goal guide was I created a Facebook group so people reading the book could ask questions and, get little bonus inspiration. So we need, and I also did put in a resource section with the different topics if you want to learn more about this goal path, that goal path, more resources. So I am with both of you in the more knowledge that you can share so you can inspire and get your clients, whether they're readers or course takers, is that a word? Or other course takers or consultants. So all the pieces work together. Is that what we're saying? Is we're in agreement on?
They should. If you've done your work, they should.
They should.
connect
They shouldn't be
worldwide,
disparate.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the first step then? Let's back up a little bit. What is the first step for creating a course?
Knowing who it's for. You know, a lot of times people come to me and say, like, I've got this idea for a course. You think it'd make a good online course? It's a yoga course. And like, I don't know. Who's it for, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing to make a course on photography. It's another thing to say, I'm making a course for amateur digital photographers who now want to go semi-pro so they can make some money to help them pay for this expensive hobby. And, you know, like that's or parents who want to be able to document their child's life, taking some great photos versus somebody who's already a professional digital photographer and wants to know how to be more efficient as a photographer so they can make more money with their time, right? So these are all different audiences in a similar vein in terms of the topic. But so I would say, look, it's got to start with who is it for and what's the outcome you're going to deliver to them? Because unless you know those two things really specifically, like your course so many things can go awry without being clear on those things.
And oftentimes people are not clear about the outcome. They're not clear about, okay, when, you know, by the end of this course, what is that person going to be able to do that they couldn't do before? What are they going to know that they didn't know? And in some instances, it's, you know, how are they going to feel? You know, what's the change? What's the transformation? And if you're not clear about that, the ripple effect through everything you do can be very problematic, because then you'll have somebody, they'll sign up for a course thinking it's going to be, maybe it's going to be of the pro, in your example, Jason, the photographer that's already in business signs up for the course, but it really is for somebody who's just getting started and says, I want to take great pictures with my phone. You know, it's you know, there's potentially then a mismatch.
Yeah.
And then you end up, instead of building and elevating your brand, taking it down.
Yeah, that's such a good point about the outcomes, Nancy, because I find it gets overlooked so much. And people, they're not buying information. They're actually not buying your expertise. They're buying the outcome that they'll get. And the truth of the matter is, like, if you could give them in 5 minutes and one sheet of paper the thing they want, that might still sell for $5,000 if the outcome is worth it to them, right?
Exactly.
Like they'll be like, great, I don't have to watch 5-hour course. I can just look at one sheet of paper and now, you know, I'm exaggerating to make the point, but that what they're buying is the outcome. And so your marketing and your messaging and the curriculum itself are you know, not going to be focused enough if you don't get those two things straight.
Right. And then what it does for the creator is it gives you a focus.
Yeah.
So you get little, you know, ideas come in, the shiny objects show up, and, you know, it looks at you and goes, pick me. And you got to say, you fit or you don't fit. And, you know, putting it aside, I talk about, I'm a big Snoopy fan. He's sitting on the top of the doghouse and, you know, he's typing away. It was a dark and stormy night, a shot rang out. And then he's like, now what do I do? Where do I go? Because he hasn't decided how the story is going to end as he's in that mode. He has no idea what the characters are going to do. Anyway, and he's a dog too. So.
That's a great analogy.
I love it. And she's a dog. You know, that's the afterthought. It's so true. So the D in the Deb method stands for determine your mission. So I am completely in alignment with what you're saying, because if you don't know what you're going for, you can't get what you want. And so
absolutely.
I love that end of the path sort of philosophy. Okay, you know the transformation, you know who it is for. Now what?
Oh, well, after those two steps?
Yes, after you get that foundation.
Yeah.
You want to, go ahead, Nancy. You take that.
Well, then once you've decided who it's for, then you want to take a look at, well, what do you already have in terms of your content? Do you have content that exists or not? So, but even before that, then you want to start framing out. So if I want to get them here and they're here, what do I need to tell them to move them up so they get to that point? So it's really, it's pretty straightforward. It's, come up with an outline, focus on what you want to teach. And then when you're clear on the what, then you think, okay, now how can I teach this? What's the best way for me to teach this content given whatever delivery method I choose, whether it's going to be an online evergreen course, whether it's going to be done via Zoom or in person, because each of those has different opportunities and constraints that you need to consider when you're building.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great outline. Essentially, we're saying like, know who it's for, what is the outcome, then the process you're going to use to get them there, and then what's the experience you're going to wrap that whole
Exactly.
thing in, right?
Exactly.
And something really important that you're touching on was that, yeah, like once you know the outcome, I say, well, let's break that down into milestones, and we want each of those milestones to feel meaningful. I mean, you like this, Deborah. It's like, it sounds like setting good goals, right? It needs to be meaningful. It needs to be like clear. It's like, hey, this contributes to the ultimate thing I'm trying to go for. So as they're going through each module, there's that motivation, like, oh, I can see the progress happening and the milestones are stacking up to get to where you want to go. And then I often say, like, look, those milestones, they make up your modules. And then it's like, well, what do they need to know to hit that milestone? What skills do I need to give them? What questions might they have? And so then that's where, you're capturing all this other information that goes into lessons. And then you get to hopefully get rid of a bunch of it because you're like, is this actually necessary for that milestone? It's interesting, but maybe not. Get rid of it. Is this okay? Maybe that's a bonus thing over here, right? And so then it helps you having that outcome and those milestones helps you keep it really streamlined, because overwhelm is the number one reason people are not going to finish the course, right?
Right.
So we don't want to give them too much.
And much of it is looking at it. What do they need to know, and what's nice to know, and really sort that. Just kind of have that in mind to go. Is this something that they're going to need to continue to advance and move forward? Because oftentimes experts, we get so much that we want to share. Yeah. And there's like this, but I gotta stop. But let's step back. Let's look at what you're trying to do. And, I've had people come forward. They say they want to make a course, and I'll go, you got a whole curriculum here. You don't have a course. You have 5 courses, 10 courses. And so let's think about, how do we, break it up so that the modules are going to be easy to consume? Like you were saying, Jason, you don't want people to get overwhelmed and not be able to finish. And the other side of it is the people that are working to create the courses, they can get overwhelmed by it because there's oftentimes there's like they don't come at it with an organizing schema or structure. Yeah. They just start creating.
And sometimes there is like that, divergent phase of the course creation. What I mean by that is like, I had one student, she said she was in the middle of doing this milestones and curriculums, and she said she had sticky notes like everywhere, right? Which was fine. Like she was just like, okay, these are all the different ideas and things I might want to teach it. And then she started grouping them and stuff. She's also an editor. And so she was good at the like, okay, this can go out, right? And so it's like, yeah, that divergent phase, you're like, okay, here's the ideas. I'm brainstorming. It's the messy middle. What's this going to be? But then you got to go into convergent mode where it's like, okay, is it in or is it out? Is this relevant? Is it not? And bring it all together in the end.
And some things you just save for another day.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's great.
Yeah. So I love that you brought up overwhelm is what stops people from completing courses, but what stops people from creating them? Is that also overwhelm?
It's definitely one of the big ones.
Yeah, I've got so much content. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I just can't even. And I think people will oftentimes, they see it as another project instead of, they're not looking at what is the transformation for them. If I complete a course, if I get this done, this is what it's going to do for me. I'm going to have more time. I'm going to have more freedom. I'm going to be able to serve more people. They kind of lose sight of their why. And then that can kind of cause things to stall. Other things come into play and take priority. I think overwhelm, and one place that people can get really stuck is, you mean I got to be on video and on a camera and they don't, they could be great people, but unless they're seasoned presenters, being on camera is challenging. I've seen some of the nicest people I know, as soon as they see that light, they just
Deer in headlights. Yeah.
Those are a couple of spots, so definitely.
Yeah, those are great. And a couple more I can think of. I know people sometimes are worried about, well, I don't want to make a course and spend all that time investing in it just to find out that nobody wants it, that it's crickets. And there's a couple easy solutions to that. The first one is, I mean, being out very specific about the person and the outcome. That's the first thing. Second thing is, go do a bit of research. Like, I encourage my students to, in my program, to like go talk to half a dozen to 10 people who fit that ideal client persona. Now, you're not there to say like, hey, I'm thinking about making this course. What do you think? Like, no, they're not going to be able to give you the right feedback. You're there to ask good open-ended questions about their experience. Tell me about the last time you tried to do that. What have you tried before? What was frustrating for you? Why is this important to you? And all this stuff helps you to confirm that you are hitting the right outcomes, that you're not missing anything. It'll help with the language in your messaging because you're getting their exact wording that they're using. And because of that, you know, that phenomenon that Ms. Nancy mentioned is, as we get more expert, we lose touch sometimes with what's needed where they're at. So that reminds you of those things. So that's one thing, is just doing good customer discovery can be such a validator. Plus it might find you some of your first few people to take the course. And then the second thing is, well, don't create the whole thing before you sell it. Sell it first. Like, as long as you're clear enough on here's who it's for, here's what you're going to get done, and you can give them enough information for them to like say they're in or out, run a pilot first. That's, you know, going to save you so much heartache down the road by getting some feedback, by kind of co-creating through that first iteration of going through with a group. So you don't invest in necessarily making hours and hours of video that look pristine, but that were, you know, not necessarily needed because you didn't do your customer discovery and you didn't run a pilot to help you dial it in. So if you do those steps, like you can go a long ways to avoiding the whole launching to crickets idea, and that can move that out of the way.
And to add to that, you know, if you're looking at a launch strategy of releasing lessons or modules over a period of time, have a few built. So if you get busy, you're not going to miss your release time. So to be real clear on what's your work effort going to be, so you can say, okay, I can crank out something every 2 weeks or every month or whatever, or every week, whatever it is, but to be real clear on what it's going to take you to do it and create a buffer so that you honor the commitment that you make to your community when you're putting your content out there.
Yeah. And then just set those expectations going in. Some people love being part of a pilot because they know they're going to get more of that direct access to you because you want their feedback. In fact, I love launching a new program saying, I'm looking for a case study group, because I want that initial set of people that I want to turn into success stories, and they're going to be a part of that process of creating. And so, because sometimes people get nervous about, oh, I can't just go sell a beta program. It's like, no, in a lot of ways, they're going to be getting just as good or even better experience being a part of that, and you're going to ensure that they get what they need, because that's the whole point of running the pilot, is to make sure you know exactly what people need to then turn that into the, ongoing official version of the course.
And they feel like insiders too.
Yeah.
Totally. I feel like this is like course creation 101, 102, 103, 104, all wrapped into a nice little pretty bow. Before we move forward, our friend Cliff Ravenscraft is watching live.
Hey,
says
Cliff.
Hello.
Long time, Cliff.
Yes, and Cliff's been on GoalChatLive a few times as well, and he's always got some awesome inspiration. So hi, Cliff. Yeah. We are glad that you are tuning in. And now back to our topic. So now you've both mentioned there are all different types of courses. What is and I hate to say this, but I'm going to do it anyway, what is the easiest thing to do for those who want to dip the toe in as opposed to the cannonball plunge into the water?
Well, here's what I would say, and that is going back to the pilot idea. Use tech you already have and tools you already know how to use. Like with that pilot, it doesn't need to be this fancy polish, set up the whole, platform kind of thing. I've sold pilots for several $1,000s that got great results. And I basically used Zoom, email, and a Google Drive folder, right? Where we stored the recordings, and then Google Docs to make my worksheets and frameworks and templates. Now later, again, you can turn those into the nicer version of those things. But that's one thing I say is like, use the tech and tools you already have and know to use, and that's going to make it so much easier for you to run it. We talked about the milestones and the modules. Well, what if, I mean, you know, make it for whatever your needs are. But for instance, imagine you've got those 5 modules and milestones laid out. It's like, okay, what if it's a 1-hour Zoom call once a week for those 5 weeks, or every other week if you think everyone's going to need 10 weeks to actually get through the process. Maybe there's a Q&A in between, but, you know, just set it up simple like that. And then you can bring out the fancier production level, you know, bells and whistles and things later. But so that's what that's one thing I would say to make it easy.
And I think you can stand up something fairly quickly in Zoom as opposed to doing an evergreen program. The other part is if you start in Zoom, you know, it's like a double beta almost, because you're taking your content, you're testing it out in a format that's easy to change. So if somebody doesn't understand instructions for a worksheet, you can rewrite the instructions, and you're just dealing with text. If some of your images aren't quite what they need to be, or the way that you've designed your slides or the content on your slides isn't quite right, it's an easy thing to tweak a slide, a PowerPoint slide, a Keynote slide, or a document, as opposed to if you go right to doing evergreen and video content right away, it's more complicated to make changes because there's more people involved. So it's changing the slide, it's going back into doing the editing. So I like to test things out in Zoom, which is kind of what I did for myself before I created my online course about online courses. Is I, you know, presented on Zoom, and I got it nailed down and really knew what people wanted and what they needed. Then I made the transition to an evergreen course. So I actually followed my own advice, which, you know, which is important. Then, you know, like I love what you said, Jason, about start with the tools that you know, because the people are already comfortable, and you can bring in. I don't have it fired up today, but I use a product called Ecamm, and I also use a Stream Deck, so I can do some simple transitions that really wow people on Zoom. But it's all I'm doing is pushing a button to change the scene. So it goes from me on camera to a slide with me in a little circle in the corner to a screen share to whatever. And, you know, that was like, you know, level 2. So just keep thinking about where you are, where can you start, and keep learning more tools that you can bring in, more external apps. Instead of using the whiteboard in Zoom, maybe use a Google Jamboard. Maybe bring in a product like Mentimeter to, instead of a straight up polling question, it can generate a word cloud or other types of output. So just keep thinking about, you know, it goes back to early in my career when I was learning the business, and I had a manager who would always say, what can we do to make it better? Not that we're going to wait until it's perfect, but every iteration, what improvement can we make this time? And what can we do this time? And then it doesn't feel quite so overwhelming as you're working through. And invest in a microphone.
Yeah, that's one of the easiest things you can do to make production better, is get a decent mic. Totally.
And lighting too. I did this thing this year where I have in front of me, I've got rid of all the tripods, because all the tripods for the lights was making me crazy. So I have two uprights on my desk and a pole that goes across the top. And I have a light mounted in either corner pointing down. And then I have 2 side lights here. So I can turn on as much or as little depending on the time of day. And it took me a while to figure out this setup, but there's a boom arm with a microphone. And then I have another boom arm if I want to bring in a camera and have multiple shots if I'm feeling, you know, especially fancy. But this was part of my own iteration. Yeah. And, you know, how can I continue to up my game?
Yeah.
I love all this done is better than perfect philosophy, and then up leveling. What about charging for courses? Because I know that's something else that trips people up a lot. What is the rule of thumb?
For the price?
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you one mistake to avoid, and that is thinking that, well, more information is what makes it a higher price, or more modules or more videos. Going back to my 1 page and 5 minute video, for $5,000 example, right? It's like, uh, it's price based on the value of what you're delivering. Sometimes I'll give you an example that's a little more obvious, and then we can talk about how to apply that differently. So I have a client who is a great mediator for people who are getting divorced, and she's so just compassionate in the way that she goes about it, and just exactly who you want to have on your side when you're going through something hard. And so she made this course, which is like, there's so many people who are like, afraid and confused, don't know what to expect when they suddenly figure out they're going to be going through a divorce. So she made this course that goes through the basics of what to expect, what to get together. And in terms of value that she's delivering, I mean, it's very easy in the pitch for the course to say, okay, what is the average hourly for a divorce lawyer? At a minimum, it's like $300 to $500. And here in New York, it's 500 and up, right?
Yeah.
And you easily will save 2 to 3 hours of talking to a lawyer who, trying to explain this stuff to you, as opposed to buying her course for a few $100s that will get you that. And then you can, still, talk to her, whatever. So, there we're making a direct correlation in terms of savings, putting money back in their pocket, time back in their pocket. Sometimes it's not so obvious, right? Like, how do you put money on like reducing somebody's stress, for instance? Definitely value there, maybe a little bit harder, though. That's what you want to be thinking of. Is like, in what ways am I making a realistic impact in the changes of, and also be thinking about what else might they be spending money on, or what's it going to cost them not to finally get this thing taken care of, right? If you are somebody who teaches people to better manage their ADHD, and let's say specifically entrepreneurs, you can make all these entrepreneurs, they don't want to drop balls. They don't want to look unprofessional. They don't want to be forgetting, or struggling with their focus and ADHD. So it's like, you're putting money and time and back in their pocket by saying, I'm going to help you not drop those balls that then end up costing you all this time to fix. I'm going to help you, right? So that's what you want to go for, is pricing according to the value as best as you can. And then let's see what Nancy has to say about it. That's my initial.
No, I totally agree with you, Jason. That is the way to look at it. Another step people can take when they're doing the primary research that you spoke about before is to look at who else does your target audience buy services from, and kind of get a sense of what are they and what are they charging, and then look at it and say, okay, if you're willing to spend $1,000 with Jason, then perhaps you're willing to spend $1,000 with me. I mean, I'm just putting that out there, but that's just a way to get a sense of where are they. I'm working with someone now, and her target audience initially was going to be single mothers. Well, if you're looking at selling to a single mother as opposed to an executive, their budgets are different. So it's part of it is, what is it that they're, I'm big about what's the transformation? What are they going to get? How's that going to impact their life? And you can look at it in terms of, financials, quality of life, and then think about, well, where is the market such that, where does it fall into what they're going to do? Now, some people, depending on, how tough things are, they may be willing to make a big investment, because they may look at it and go, this, I believe that this program is what's going to move me forward. So there's a lot of factors involved. And, perhaps we can even look at it from the perspective of, do you have different levels? So there's maybe an easy yes. So maybe there's an initial program that's $97 that gets them to know you, to like you, to trust you. And then from there, then maybe they're ready to go to the $2,000 program, just the kind of moving up in levels. So kind of when you're getting started and you're just putting the first item out there, think about what's an easy yes.
Ooh, I like that. Jason, did you want to add to that?
I mean, that's all great. Let's see. I guess another thing that I'd say is make sure that it makes sense for you in terms of the time that you're putting in. I mean, of course, what we're trying to do here is increase your capacity to serve in less of your time. And as you're designing, that experience of the course, like, is it going to involve you doing some live Q&As, or is there an occasional one-on-one call with you, or, you know, is it purely digital, do it yourself? You know, like all of that's going into effect, because obviously the more time of your own you're putting in, like you want to do the math and make sure that it makes sense, right? Like, you know, you're not selling hourly, but still like maybe do some average time and divide it out and like, okay, this comes out to $500 an hour per student or whatever. And it's like, okay, that feels good to me. So do the math a little bit, the best you can, and make sure it makes sense in terms of the value of your own time, because there's nothing worse than not charging enough and then resenting the fact that you need to deliver this
I gotta teach these people.
Right. And then you're not doing your best work, and it's just not a win all around in that case. So that's another thing I would add.
Yeah, it's really the more of your time you're going to spend in the course, then that's a other big factor in what's the value of the course. If they're just going to do something on their own independently, that's a lower ticket item. But if you're going to be there showing up every week for 2 hours, that's a whole nother story. That's another end of the continuum.
And price is another thing you experiment and iterate on. I mean, there's no magic formula. People really don't like it when I don't just give them a number. It's like, okay, so for a group course that's 8 weeks long, how much should it be? And I wish I could just hand you a formula, but it just doesn't work.
Me too.
So, you know, one thing I do is I'll close my eye, and this kind of goes back to your value of your own time, but also, you know, there's your confidence in saying the price and charging the price and marketing to that, your ability to establish the value in your marketing copy, in your sales copy. There's the proof that you've built up that then reinforces that. So as all these things get dialed in, you're able to charge higher more easily, right? So you might like close your eyes and imagine the price going up. It's like, ooh, okay, right there, that feels like that might be hard for me to quote that price. It's like, okay, well, maybe that's your comfort zone and that's the one. But, you know, then test next, you know, after a little bit of time, try selling it at a little higher price. And sometimes you might be surprised, like, wow, they didn't even balk at the price. I mean, I sell most of my courses on the phone because they're at that price point that it requires that. So I get to see people's reactions. And so sometimes I'm like, okay, next time I'm bumping it up by 10% and we're going to see what happens. And, you know, this isn't just about milking people for all the money, but it's about figuring out what the value it is to others, and also building your own muscle of being comfortable in like saying, no, what I do has this value and I do want to charge that amount for it too. So it's something you can experiment with and iterate over time as well.
Yeah, excellent point.
It sounds like confidence is like the main ingredient for creating courses, or up there, right? Yes, you need to have the knowledge, but you need to have enough faith in yourself to invest your time and energy into creating things that will help others. Yes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Well, I mean, what I would say to add to that is, I mean, when somebody says like, when am I ready to create a course? I know there's all kinds of things strategically in your business, but there is one, you know, a couple criteria when somebody says like, am I ready to take your program on how to make my program? And one is like, well, are you confident in your ability to deliver results to the client you're working with already? Because if the answer isn't yes yet, okay, spend a little more time doing your one-on-one and dialing in the process and figuring out what works to deliver results dependably. Then we can transition that into another format, for instance. So I guess that's one way, that confidence does help, because you want to be confident in the process that you're taking people through to get them to those outcomes in order to effectively turn it into a program.
And the other thing that I was going to correlate the confidence to is something that Nancy mentioned earlier, which is turning on that camera and talking to yourself and or to people, right? So what are some of the things people can do to get better at that, to develop that skill? I mean, I love talking to people, but for me to not talk to people like I'm talking to people, even for me, that's a challenge, right? Like if I'm doing a workshop and it's not interactive, I know the people are there, great, but still, you know?
Well, I think starting on Zoom is a great place. And I think to be practicing enough times, it's not always practice, but be delivering enough times where you start to just embody the content, you know, kind of in the format that we're in now. You know, we all know enough about what we do that if you ask a question, we can answer the question. You need to be at that place that you are really dialed into your content. That if somebody called you and said, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" that you could show up and you could deliver a program. Now, when we get into the video space, what I think becomes challenging is you're just looking at a camera. You don't have an audience to feed off of. Certainly the best is when you're in person, because you can really pick up on the energy in the room. When you're on Zoom, you've got some people are on camera, some people are off camera, some people are like so you it's kind of you're working to be engaging, but there's all these kind of distractions around people. So you've got to be there and really know your content well, be able to mix it up, be able to put in exercises and activities that keep people with you. I did something the other day where it was brilliant. They said that there was going to be a trivia question at the end of each, was multiple speakers, at the end of each speaker's segment. And if you could answer the trivia question, then you got whatever their bonus offer was. So just the fact that there was a little prize in line, that made people, I got to pay attention because I want the prize. So thinking about, it's about keeping people engaged. Now, when you move to going to video, it's not as organic as an experience as it can be on Zoom, because you want to say as much as you can in as little time as possible. And to do that, you need a script. And I believe in working with a teleprompter as well. So then it's learning about where's the camera, where's the teleprompter copy, so that I can be delivering naturally. I don't appear like I'm reading. And that's a skill that takes a little bit of time to acquire. And the reason why I suggest this is, if people say, I'm great, I'll just wing it, you've got a risk of just kind of wandering around and not staying on point. And I can raise my hand to be guilty of this. If something pops into my head, I am compelled to say it in the moment. And then, and it may lose the thread. And you want to make your videos as concise as possible. Well, for two reasons. Number one, you're going to keep people more interested. Number two, will cost you less in editing if there isn't as much footage to deal with. So it's and again, this is all just part of just learning and continuing to grow and develop. And there's lots of people out there that can help, coach for on-camera confidence, and to really make sure that you shine and you show up in your best way possible.
That's awesome. Jason, did you want to add to that?
I think that's all great. I don't know if I have anything to add to that. I guess some of my course materials I'm actually not on camera. That is an option sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that it's more engaging if people can see you, and maybe you've got, maybe you're drawing or doing things, or you're down here in the corner and writing on an iPad and it's showing up on it, right? But again, iteration, you can get there
right
on the road.
Right.
So you also can, maybe version 1, you make some videos that it's capturing some visuals on screen, and you don't have to worry about your face being on screen. And then it is easier to read the script and and not think about the 3 things at once. So I'm trying to read the script and also
look at the camera
and remember where my stuff, right? So just, step into it as there are a lot of steps between just presenting it live off the cuff on Zoom, and then the polished, with the lights and the teleprompter and everything. And, hey, that's great to get there. And then you can also do things in between as your confidence, your skills, your budget allow.
And it's what I think is important is that there's a lot of movement. If you think about it, we're used of consuming entertaining content, news content on screens. Everybody that's on the planet today, that's the main way that we take in information. And if you watch any type of program, the scenes are changing like this. So I believe that our brains are conditioned for these rapid scene changes. And then when we go in to do our courses, what do? A lot of talking head, image up for things to images up, stay up for way too long. So if you can be thinking through and kind of go through this exercise of, when, as I say this sentence, I want this to show up. Then I say this, I want this to show up, and keep the movement going. So if you have voiceover slides, you can just keep having the imagery changing. But then if you add yourself into it, so you can open it up, but then you can do things like have a graphic come up on the bottom that emphasizes a point. Position yourself to one side so that then text can be put on the screen next to you. And again, these are all steps that you can take to improve. But I think it's about it. To me, the main part about engagement is having these things change that people are looking at to hold their interest. I watched the United safety briefing. The only time, if the flight attendant's right here, I look at her because or him, because I don't want to be mean. But when it's on the video, I'll watch the video, and I was counting how often the scene changed in this training video. And I'm glad that I finally know how to put on a seatbelt. Right. But it was very often. I stopped counting at, I think, 75, and there was still probably another 2 minutes left in the video. The other thing about it that was brilliant is not only was it educational, but the scenes changed to different parts of the world that would be fabulous to travel to. So they had me on 2 levels. They did their job, meeting their requirements for safety, but they also made me think about, Bali looks really good. I think that'll be my next trip. So there's different elements that are going on, and it's, again, and I don't want to now scare people off and make them think this is really just very overcomplicated, but it's not that difficult to create a series of PowerPoint slides and have a different graphic on each slide and use that and put your voice behind it as phase 1. And if you really are thoughtful that the words and the pictures connect, you'll be far above a lot of the courses that are out there. Because sadly, a lot of people are saying, here, buy my online course, and it's a webinar recording, and I wasn't part of the webinar. I don't care about the questions that the people had in the webinar. You're kind of wasting my time by making me watch quite a bit here that, frankly, I don't care about. And I think it's been detrimental to the course marketplace that so many people are just pushing out a webinar and not saying what it is. Hey, nothing wrong with selling your recording, but just say, here's a great recording that I want to share with you. Because there's this level of mediocrity that drives me crazy when you don't have to do that much more to be a whole heck of a lot better.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about this presentation, this goal setting simplified presentation that I gave last week, and I am guilty. I've got determine your mission and the 5 steps, and I go through the 5 steps, but that could be like 20 slides, the 5 steps, just to go through that. Ooh, now I've just given myself homework. Thanks a lot. I mean, thanks a lot. But I see what you're saying, how you could do just little things that will amp things up a lot. And I think that's the start where you are with what you have, and then look for little things that you could do to amp things up.
Exactly. And I want to go back to Zoom for a moment before I forget. Another way that you can elevate yourself fairly quickly is to have somebody act as your digital producer or concierge, where they can monitor what's going on in the chat. They can put all the different links in. If somebody's having a problem with something, somebody comes in late, they didn't get the handout, you don't have to disrupt your flow, but to just have that second person, that their whole responsibility is the technology, just frees you up to just be there and be present for your audience. So
I believe it or not, I've got a personal example to this as well. I just presented at the Engaging Conference. I did my pep talk, the pre-event planning happy hour, and John Chen said, "Do you want a producer?" And I'm okay. How you go back to not having a producer after having a producer, I don't know. but to have that extra person putting in the links, doing all of the things, the opening music, letting people in, finding the links and putting them in the chat. And then you could just concentrate on what you know, which is the content.
Yes.
And
It's
engaging
really,
the audience.
it's so nice to be able to do that. It just ups your game.
And that the name of the game is to up the game and keep improving, well, if you're tuning in, you have course creator goals, whether you've started them or, and like I said, most of my courses I do as webinars because I like the interaction. You may have converted me because now I've got an idea that I'm thinking about. That would make a really interesting course that no one is doing. So I will keep you both posted on that. But so much food for thought because the sphere, there's so many different levels that people don't even think about. This has been just amazing. Jason, anything else about presenting you want to add before we start sharing some goals for the audience to get them on the course creator train?
I mean, I guess I'd say if you are going to start out, as we've suggested, and maybe just doing the Zoom version of the course, do brush up on your Zoom skills a bit. If you're gonna have a producer, that'll help quite a bit. But there's just kind of to add on to that, there's little things you can do to make the Zoom experience more. I mean, we all know all the little friction points and blips and bobbles and things that disrupt a meeting or the flow or whatever. So, spending a little time to make sure that you are familiar with the interface and the basic, functions and things to run, to keep things, to set them up well and keep them running as best as possible is worthwhile.
And they change every week. It feels like there are new little toy things on Zoom.
Yes.
And just taking a little bit of time really is going to up your presentation for sure.
And to tie to that, don't do a Zoom upgrade right before you're going to present something. Because things can move around on the screen. There's, whatever. And then that's just like, it adds an unnecessary stress. So after you do your program, then upgrade.
Or alternatively, make sure you've logged into Zoom that day, like a few hours, so it doesn't automatically do the upgrade for you.
Oh,
and you can't stop it.
Yes.
Wow. So much information. I really feel like I've been to like University of Course Creation. I thank you both so much, Nancy and Jason. What goals would you like to gift our audience? What can they do today, tonight, like immediately to either start or up level their course creation? Jason, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So the first, if we're setting goals, like actions you can go and take that would move this forward, give you confidence, put you on the right path, help you stand out from others trying to also make courses, I would say it's that customer discovery interview thing that I was talking about. And, sometimes at first when I mention this, people are like, oh, I got to go talk to people. I mean, look, I'm an introvert, just like, even though I run a networking community and stuff. I know it takes energy to talk to people sometimes. Some people it comes easily. However, I will tell you the number of insights you'll get. And in fact, often I end up feeling excited about what I'm going to create because I've got more clarity. I'm seeing their responses to things I'm asking and saying. They're sharing things where I'm like, ooh, I know how I can help them with that, right? And so it's so worth the time to just spend a couple of weeks, go to your network, go to your email list, your social media following. There are a lot of different ways to find the people and just run those interviews because it's going to make everything else so much easier and make sure you're on the right path. So that's one of the suggestions I would make.
Love that. Thank you. And Nancy, what goal do you want to gift?
Well, first, I agree 100% with the goal that Jason put out there. And I think that's definitely the first thing you want to do is tie into your audience. Then step back and take a look at what do you already have? Do you have articles? Have you been on podcasts? Have you done presentations? Have you written a book? where are places that you can potentially mine for content? Because I think that creates a bit of ease to go, okay, I've got information that I can start with. I'm not starting on with a blank sheet of paper. You can also spend some time, go out to ChatGPT or another AI tool and pose questions there, and perhaps ask it to give you an outline for the program that you're thinking about doing. You never want to use what you get from AI 100%. You got to look at it and tweak it and make it sound like you and reflect you and your unique spin. So let's say if you're involved in leadership, there's a lot of people doing leadership. What makes you unique to leadership or sales or whatever the topic might be?
Now, there's a whole AI thing. You bring up, a whole different tangent.
Yeah.
Where do you draw that line?
I look at it that I never have to start with a blank sheet of paper again.
Yeah.
I think of AI as I have a very capable assistant that needs very specific instructions to be able to provide me with what I need. And I look at it as if I were to ask somebody to go and do research on a particular topic and, okay, give me what you have, then I would look at it and I would then personalize it. I would bring in my own experience, my stories to make it come to life. You don't ever want to use it to you don't want to use it to replace your expertise. You want to use it to be able to give you a starting point to bring your thoughts and ideas forward. I think that people that think that they can then now teach about anything to anybody because they'll just have ChatGPT do it. That's like back in the day when you would buy a private label, a white label course on sales, but you've never sold anything in your life. Okay. So it's like, it's changing the way that we work. And it's all about really having good, clear, specific prompts.
Perfect answer. I have nothing to add to that. Totally. That's exactly how I look at it too. Great answer.
Awesome. Okay. Where are my gold stars? You guys, here you go. You both have gold stars. And those of you tuning in, you get gold stars as well because you're choosing yourself in this path potentially for getting your expertise out there. Where can people learn more about you, Nancy?
Well, the best place to find me is at my website, which is nancygiere.com. And my email is easy because it's nancy@nancygiere.com.
Wow. I'm all about goal setting simplified. You can't get more simplified than that. So wonderful. And Jason, where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, so jasonvanorden.com, and to give you a couple reasons to check it out and maybe get on my newsletter there, I regularly run very actionable free workshops to help you get started on some of these things. If you're not sure what your course idea should be, if you're trying to get a little more specific about who your ideal client is or better understand their outcomes, I make it my goal to give people a chance to see what it would be like to be my client long before they're actually my client. And so, to go deeper on any of these things, would love to have you involved in some of those workshops I run on a regular basis.
Okay. Do you want to tell everybody what GEM is as well?
Oh yeah, that's a great one too. So then I also run a networking community that brings together coaches, consultants, other experts with content creators, podcasters, and live streamers, stuff like that. And the whole goal is to facilitate getting people with great ideas onto platforms to help them get the visibility for those ideas. But lots of other great collaborations and connections happen through those meetings as well. We meet once a month on the second Thursday of the month. And if you go to jasonvanorden.com/GEM, GEM, which stands for Generous Entrepreneurs in Media, we'd love to have you attend if that sounds of value to you.
Awesome. And I will put all of this in the recap. I am at the Deb Method everywhere. And if you go to thedebmethod.com/blog, you will get the recap to this, the previous shows, the links. I also put in my guest LinkedIn links as well. So if this resonates with you, send one or all of us a connection request with a note saying that this is where we met. Thank you so much, Nancy and Jason, for joining today. And thank you, listeners, watchers, for tuning in. What final thoughts do you want to leave our audience with? Jason?
Here's what I would say. I have on my other screen down here Spotify, which is an amazing app that lets me find any specific piece of music I want to listen to for my mood, right? If I want jazz klezmer, I type jazz klezmer in, and there's a playlist that says jazz klezmer. Now, what does this have to do with what we're talking about today? You are someone's jazz klezmer playlist. What I mean is that people know that they can find the exact fit of the expert, the type of person, the kind of support, the kind of community they want to be a part of. And even though there might be thousands of other people with a similar expertise out there, there's something about you and the playlist that you provide that is exactly what they're looking for. And so if you can not only just dial into, providing that outcome, but knowing like the kind of person that resonates with you most, you've got that crowd out there. So going bigger with courses is a great way to go to get that message out further.
I love that analogy.
That's great.
That's fabulous. Sorry, you have to follow that, Nancy.
I know. Well, you know what, as you were talking, what I was thinking is oftentimes with music, we start with a single song and we love that single song. And then we think, oh, what else might they have? So then we go and we build a playlist based on that particular person. So when you're just moving and getting started, think about what is the individual course that you can create that's going to bring your audience to you, the people that you want to work with, the people that you want to serve, to really get everything started and to create some excitement and create a buzz. Because I believe that everybody is brilliant, and it's my role to help you figure out, well, just how do you bundle that brilliance into a great online program?
I love that tagline. It really suits you and it works for you indeed. But that's it. And this is why I do this, and I get to bring cool people like you together. People need this information so they can have that inspiration, that motivation, so they can embrace themselves, their goals, and create the better life, the one that they deserve, but also help others in the process. So thank you again, Nancy Giere and Jason Van Orden, for joining today. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching this as GoalChatLive or listening to the Deb Show podcast on the Marketing Podcast Network. We are live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific, and then you can subscribe at The Deb Method on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform. Okay, you have all the tools. Go out there, create your courses. We know you can do it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.